Alright guys, welcome back to another movie review on the channel. I know it's been a couple days now since the last time I've made a video, but the last time I was gone was when I caught COVID, but as of now your boy is feeling a lot better than he was before, and has been kind of been tired for the last few days, but hasn't been making much videos. And like I said before, I did promise that I would make a Spider-Man No Way Home review. So anyway, let's get into it. So Spider-Man No Way Home has been out, or it has been out for about, I think, 3 weeks now. But I went to go see it on Christmas break with my family, and, how should I put this? How did I react to it? Yeah, that was basically everyone's reaction when that movie came out, though, because the hype was through the roof, is what I would say the most, because I haven't been this excited for a Marvel movie since Avengers Infinity War, which is kind of a rare case. I wasn't too hyped about Endgame, but I still enjoyed it. But Infinity War, I think, is still better than Endgame, if I could say so, because I think most of the majority of those people agree. But enough of that. Spoilers. I know everybody's already seen the whole movie though, but I wanted to explain my thoughts on how this movie went down, and oh boy, there is a lot that I want to say about this movie. So let's get into it. So right off the bat, this movie was made for the hardcore Spider-Man fans. And as someone who grew up watching the original Sam Raimi movies, and I didn't really care much about the Mark Webb movies. And then up until now, when the Spider-Man No Way Home movie released, it's there to please everyone, and it's literally got all of the villains from the past Spider-Man movies. Well, not all of them, but some of them. Like, Alfred Molina's Doc Ock is like one of my favorite superhero movie villains in general. Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, when I say that he's like the most effective superhero movie villain in all of the heroes in general, like 20 years later, I literally mean it. He has been the most, like, in the whole movie, he's been like the most threatening character, like, out of, well, Willem Dafoe just goes crazy with the role again, like he did 20 years ago with the original Spider-Man movie. Alfred Molina's Doc Ock was a real good treat to see. Jamie Foxx's Electro, while he wasn't the greatest character in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I really did think they did justice with Jamie Foxx's Electro, though, because his design, I didn't really like his design too much in Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but they made it more to the comic book role, like the comic book design for Electro, which I thought was a really unique addition, and most of the time Marvel uses that source material to make the characters look exactly like the comic book designs. And Lizard, he still kind of looks the same, but he kind of looks more like crocodile-ish, but not like crocodile-ish. I don't know if that's even a word. Sandman, I personally didn't really like his design. Sandman is just a man made out of sand. I don't know, that just sounded really dumb, but if you guys have seen the movie, though, Sandman's design, I really ain't the biggest fan of, though. I wish they could have gotten the actor to play, like, in actual suit and everything, but they made him all CGI and mocap and voice acting and all this extra shit. But anyway, enough of the villains. All the villains in the movie were fun, and the interactions between them were cool to see, and it was very fun to see them all on the big screen together. Now we're getting into the meat potatoes. Peter Parker, aka Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man. Now, if you guys don't really like him, it really brings him back to basics of being the character itself. But I feel like Tom Holland really stands out in this film, though, because the last two films kind of made him all this goofy, just kind of goofy, though. But Spider-Man is intended to be goofy at times. But they took this role down a little bit more serious. And speaking of which, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's alternate versions of Spider-Man show up in the film. And boy, oh boy, do I fucking love it. In all honesty, most of the returning villains and heroes in that movie is kind of the worst kept secret in all of Hollywood. But we really knew it was going to happen anyways, though, and it was all worth it in the end. And seeing the three Spider-Men interact with each other and just all these, like the scene where Andrew Garfield is trying to crack Toby's back problems or something. Like, I was just sitting there laughing my ass off, and I was just like, what? Is this real life? I will admit, Andrew Garfield's performance in this movie was surprisingly good. Like, I will say that, well, Tobey Maguire and Andrew and Tom Holland, all three of them are good actors, and their chemistry behind the characters was really fascinating to me. Because not only that, we know that Aunt May dies by the hands of Green Goblin if you have seen the movie, so that's why I said spoilers. Yeah, Aunt May gets killed by the Green Goblin, and Tom goes into hiding, so he thinks he messed everything up. Then everyone is trying to find Peter Parker, or like Ned and MJ are trying to find Peter Parker, but they end up fighting two versions of the alternate version of him, which ended up being Toby and Andrew, and they end up teaming up with him to go face the Sinister Six and bring back the multiverse and stuff. And the final battle itself was really cool. Like, not only that, when I say that Andrew Garfield stands out too, I think he outshines more than most of the other characters. But Andrew managed to, like, capture the pain and suffering that this version of Peter went through. And seeing them all just interact with each other and talk about how they lost their loved ones from previous movies was really, really sad, but it was also touching it to the least, because they're at least giving Tom advice to becoming what he was meant to be. Now, personally, the fight scenes in this movie, Tom Holland wasn't even fucking kidding when they said that this movie was going to be brutal. There was a lot of brutal shit in this movie. It gave me kind of like the Sam Raimi vibes of how brutal and gritty those fight scenes were in the movies. But deep down, it isn't as gritty as the Sam Raimi movies, but at least had that kind of, you know, sprinkled a little bit of it in there just to make it more violent. But it was brutal, though, because the scene between Tom Holland and Willem Dafoe just fighting in general, well, it was really cool. It was just insane. And then the majority of Doc Ock and Peter's fight was more kind of CGI-ish, but even though we know that Marvel is just has some CGI fights there. And then the best ending in the entire film happens. Peter Parker ends up using his own homemade shitty Spider-Man costume. Like the classic Spider-Man from like the 60s. And seeing him swing around New York in Christmas time was probably my favorite ending out of the Spider-Man movies that have come across in Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man. But yeah, that was a mouthful for me to say. Spider-Man No Way Home will definitely please a lot of Marvel fans and comic book fans in general, and it really pleased me. And was the hype worth it? Yes, it definitely was. So I'm going to give Spider-Man No Way Home an A+. So anyway, that's about it. See ya.